I woke up with a pounding headache, the kind that comes from a night spent wrestling with storms and regrets. My name is Marcus, 36 years old, and I've spent most of my life hammering iron into shape in this forgotten corner of the world. I live alone on the edge of Eldridge Village, a border settlement where humans and orcs mix uneasily, like oil and water forced into the same pot. The wars between our kinds ended a decade ago, but the scars remain. Raids, lost families, and a fragile peace built on mutual suspicion. Orcs control much of the trade routes now, bringing in grain and supplies while we humans till the soil and fix what breaks. It's a tense balance, one wrong word away from shattering. My home is a modest wooden cabin, more workshop than house, with a small forge out back where I repair tools for whoever pays. Human farmers or orc merchants, it doesn't matter as long as the coin is good. The place smells of soot and sweat, the roof leaks in heavy rain, and the walls creak like old bones. Last night, a brutal storm had raged through the valley, winds howling like vengeful spirits, rain pounding the earth into mud. I vaguely remembered stumbling out into the chaos, hearing a distant cry near the ravine that borders the village. Had I pulled someone from the edge? The memory was fuzzy, drowned in exhaustion. Sunlight filtered through the cracks in the shutters, cold and pale, casting long shadows across the rough-hewn floor. I was slumped in my old wooden chair by the hearth, my body aching from whatever foolhardy rescue I'd attempted. Rubbing my eyes, I sat up expecting the usual silence of my solitary mornings, but there was noise. Subtle at first, then unmistakable. From the kitchen alcove, the clatter of pots, the hiss of water heating over the fire. My heart skipped. No one ever came here uninvited? I reached for the hammer on the table nearby, my calloused fingers wrapping around its familiar handle. Turning slowly, I froze. There, in my cramped kitchen, stood an orc woman. She was tall, easily 7 feet, with broad shoulders that spoke of battles fought and won. Her skin was a deep emerald green, marked with faint scars that crisscrossed her arms like ancient runes. Long black hair hung in disheveled strands, still damp from the storm, framing a face with sharp features. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, and small tusks protruding from her lower lip. Her eyes were amber, sharp, and weary, like a predator pushed to its limits. But what shocked me most was what she wore. My old woolen shirt, the one I used for heavy labor, draped over her massive frame like a makeshift tunic. It barely reached her thighs, exposing powerful legs wrapped in tattered leather leggings. She moved with a commanding grace, stoking the fire and checking the kettle as if she owned the place. What in the gods' names are you doing here? I stammered, my voice rough from sleep and surprise. I stood up, hammer in hand, though I wasn't sure if I meant to use it or just feel less vulnerable. She turned, her movements deliberate, like a warrior assessing a threat. A faint smile tugged at her lips, confident but edged with fatigue. Her voice was low and gravelly, carrying the guttural accent of the orc clans from the northern hills. You don't remember last night, do you? The storm. The ravine. She paused, tilting her head slightly. I'm the one you dragged out of the abyss. Pulled me up with your bare hands, human. And as for who I am, call me Yarga, leader of the orc merchant caravan that supplies half this village's grain stores. My mind reeled. Flashes came back. The howling wind, the slick mud, a green hand grasping mine as I hauled her from the edge. She'd been half frozen, muttering in orcish, collapsing once we reached shelter. I'd stripped her wet clothes to prevent hypothermia, given her my shirt, and built up the fire before passing out myself. But leader of the merchants, that meant power, control over food prices, trade deals, the lifeblood of Eldridge. Orcs like her held sway over us all, and now one was in my home wearing my clothes. I lowered the hammer, but my grip stayed tight. Yarga! Right. I remember bits. You were slipping off the edge. Anyone would have helped. My words sounded hollow even to me. Not everyone would risk their neck for an orc in these parts. Old grudges died hard. She chuckled softly, a sound like distant thunder. Not anyone. Most humans would have let me fall, claimed it was the storm's doing. But you're different. She poured hot water into 2 battered mugs, adding herbs from my sparse shelf as if she'd done it 100 times. Sit. Eat. You look like death warmed over. I hesitated, then sank back into my chair. The air was thick with tension. the scent of brewing tea mixing with the faint metallic tang of her blood from last night's wounds. As she handed me a mug, I noticed the way she carried herself, poised like a commander on a battlefield, not a guest in a stranger's hovel. We sat in uneasy silence for a moment, the fire crackling between us. I sipped the tea, hot and bitter, trying to process this. An orc in my shirt, in my home. What would the villagers say? What trouble had I invited? Finally, I broke the quiet. You should rest more. Those cuts need tending. But inside, questions swirled. Why was she out there alone? And what did it mean that the orc who controlled our food was now indebted to me? Little did I know, this morning was just the beginning of a storm far more complicated than the one from the night before. After Yarga handed me the mug of tea, we sat across from each other at my rickety table, the morning light filtering through the dusty window and highlighting the stark differences between us. My home was a testament to a life of hard labor, walls patched with whatever scraps I could find, a single pot hanging over the hearth, and shelves lined with tools rather than trinkets. The air still carried the chill from the storm, mixed with the earthy scent of wet wood and the faint metallic tang from my forge outside. I was dressed in my usual worn tunic, sleeves rolled up to reveal arms scarred from years of hammering iron and pulling plows during the lean seasons. At 36, I'd seen enough of the world to know that trust was a rare commodity in Eldridge, especially between humans like me and orcs like her. Yarga, on the other hand, exuded an aura of command even in her disheveled state. Her green skin gleamed under the light, and the scars on her arms told stories of battles I could only imagine, perhaps from the very wars that had ravaged this borderland. She sat straight-backed, her massive frame making my chair creak under her weight, and sipped the tea with a measured calm. Her voice, when she spoke again, was steady but laced with an undercurrent of exhaustion. You tended my wounds well last night. Clean bandages, no infection brewing. Not many humans would bother with an orc stranger. I shrugged, trying to play it off. Anyone with a bit of sense knows frostbite doesn't care about skin color. I did what needed doing, but inside, I was wary. Orcs weren't just travelers here, they held power. Her caravan controlled the grain silos on the eastern edge of the village, dictating prices that could make or break families during harsh winters. One wrong move, and I could be labeled a sympathizer, or worse, an opportunist. We ate in silence for a while, sharing the meager breakfast I'd scraped together, stale bread, a bit of cheese from last week's market, and some dried herbs. It wasn't much, but it was honest. As the meal wound down, Yarga set her mug aside and reached into a hidden pouch on her belt. She pulled out a small leather bag, heavy with the clink of metal, and placed it on the table with a thud. "This is for you," she said, her amber eyes locking onto mine. "Gold. Enough to fix your roof, buy new tools, live without scraping by for a year. You saved my life. Consider it payment." The bag sat there like a temptation, its drawstring slightly open, revealing the glint of coins. For a split second I imagined what it could mean. No more begging for work from suspicious villagers, no more patching my boots with rags, but that thought soured quickly. I'd lived my life by my hands, not by handouts or debts. During the wars, I'd pulled wounded from both sides out of the mud, human and orc alike, without expecting a reward. It was principle, the only thing that kept me from becoming like the greedy chiefs who profited off the chaos. I pushed the bag back toward her, my voice firm. "No. I didn't drag you from that ravine for gold. Doing the right thing is enough. Keep your coin. I don't want it tainting what I did." Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise crossing her stern features. For a moment, she was silent, her tusks pressing against her lower lip as she processed my words. Yarga leaned back, crossing her arms over her chest, the fabric of my shirt stretching taut. "You refuse?" Most would snatch it without a second thought. In my world, everything has a price, loyalty, favors, even lives. Why not yours? "Because that's not my world," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I've seen what gold does. It twists people, makes them forget honor. I fixed your wounds and gave you shelter because it was decent, not because I wanted to own a piece of you or your caravan." My heart pounded as I spoke. Refusing an orc leader wasn't wise, but backing down felt worse. Memories flashed of my father, a simple farmer who died penniless but proud, teaching me that a man's worth wasn't in his purse. Yarga stared at me, her expression shifting from confusion to something almost like respect. She let out a low grunt, a sound that might have been a laugh in Orcish. I apologize. I didn't mean to insult your pride. In the clans, we pay debts swiftly or they fester like wounds. But you're not like the others I've dealt with. She picked up the bag, tucking it away, but her eyes lingered on me, as if reassessing a puzzle she hadn't expected. The tension eased slightly, but the air still felt charged. We talked a bit more, practical things, like how she'd reunite with her caravan once the paths cleared. She mentioned the storm had scattered her group, and she'd been scouting ahead when the ground gave way. As she prepared to leave, wrapping her own cloak over my shirt, which she promised to return, she paused at the door. From a chain around her neck, she removed a small amulet, a piece of etched bone with orc runes glowing faintly in the light. "Take this," she said, pressing it into my palm. Her hand was rough, calloused like mine, but warmer than I'd expected. "It's a token of debt in my culture. Show it to any orc in these parts, and they'll know you're under my protection. Even the village elder couldn't touch you without answering to me." I held the amulet, its weight unfamiliar. I don't need protection, but thank you. Part of me wanted to refuse it too, but something in her eyes stopped me. A vulnerability beneath the command, like she was offering more than just a favor. She nodded, her voice cold but sincere. "Debts must be repaid. If you need me, use it." With that, she stepped out into the crisp morning, her footsteps crunching on the frost-covered ground. I watched her go, the amulet heavy in my hand. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of something beyond survival, curiosity, maybe even connection. But I knew it came with risks. In Eldridge, mixing with orcs like Yarga could upend everything. Little did I realize how soon those risks would come knocking. The days following Yarga's departure blurred into a haze of routine and unease. Eldridge Village wasn't large, maybe 200 souls, split unevenly between humans like me and the orc clans that had settled here after the wars. The central square bustled with market stalls where farmers bartered crops for orc-supplied grain, and the air always carried the scent of baking bread mixed with the metallic tang of forges like mine. But whispers traveled fast in a place like this, faster than the wind that whipped through the ravines. By midday after she left, the rumors had already taken root. I was at my forge, hammering a bent plowshare back into shape, when old Harlan, the miller, wandered over. His face was weathered like cracked leather, eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Heard you pulled an orc from the storm last night, Marcus. And not just any orc. The boss of that grain caravan. She owe you now? Going to get us all cheap bread? Or sell us out for a fat purse?" His tone was half joking, half probing, but I saw the edge in it. I wiped sweat from my brow, the hammer heavy in my hand. "Just helped someone in need, Harlan. No more to it." But he lingered, eyeing me like I was hiding gold under my anvil. It didn't stop there. By evening, at the local tavern, a dim, smoky den called the Rusty Blade, more voices joined the chorus. "Marcus the orc lover," someone muttered as I nursed a mug of ale. "Bet he's got her token now, controlling prices. We'll all starve if he sides with them greenskins." A few avoided my gaze, shifting seats when I entered. Others were bolder, sidling up with false smiles. "Hey, Marcus, old friend. If that orc's grateful, maybe spot me alone. Times are tough." I brushed them off, but the isolation gnawed at me. I'd always been the quiet type, fixing what was broken without fanfare, but now every glance felt like an accusation. Was saving a life really worth this? I kept to myself, focusing on work. The amulet Yarga gave me hung around my neck, tucked under my shirt, a constant reminder of that stormy night. It was warm against my skin, etched with runes I couldn't read, but I felt its weight like a promise or a curse. A few days passed in tense quiet, the village paths muddy from the rain, the air crisp with the promise of autumn's bite. Then, one afternoon, as I was repairing a wagon wheel in my yard, I heard heavy footsteps approaching. I looked up, and there she was, Yarga, striding toward my cabin like she owned the path. She wore her full merchant garb now, leather armor reinforced with iron plates, a cloak embroidered with orc clan symbols, and a satchel slung over her shoulder. Her hair was tied back, revealing more scars along her neck, and her amber eyes scanned the surroundings with the vigilance of a leader. "Marcus," she greeted, her voice carrying that same gravelly authority. "We need to talk." No pleasantries, straight to the point, like an orc. I set down my tools, wiping my hands on a rag. "Didn't expect you back so soon. Everything all right with your caravan?" My heart quickened. Part of me was relieved to see her, another part wary of more complications. She glanced around, ensuring no eavesdroppers, then stepped closer. "The village is running low on reserves. Winter's coming early this year, and the chiefs, your human elders, are jacking up prices, trying to squeeze us out. They want the orcs gone, back to the hills. If we leave, half the village starves. But to stay, we need fair dealings, someone who can't be bought." I leaned against the wagon, crossing my arms. "Sounds like a mess. But why tell me? I'm just a smith." Her eyes met mine, intense and unyielding. "Because you're the one who refused my gold. In my world, that's rare. I need a mediator for the grain trades, someone to set prices without favoritism. I'll hand you the authority as repayment for my life. But also, because I trust you won't bend." The proposal hit me like a hammer blow. Me? Overseeing grain deals? That meant stepping into the village's power games, where humans had long held sway over basics like food distribution. I felt a surge of surprise mixed with a warmth I couldn't quite name. Her trust felt genuine, a crack in her armored facade. "You're serious? Why me?" "I don't know the first thing about trade ledgers." "You know honor," she replied, her voice softening just a touch. "That's more than most, and it's repayment. Debts must be settled." I paced a few steps, the mud squelching under my boots. The idea appealed to something deep in me. The chance to make things fair, to bridge the divide that had haunted this place since the wars. But it came with risks, alienating my own kind, drawing orc suspicion. Finally, I nodded. "All right, but on my terms. No coin for me. Prices get set fair. Equal shares for every household, human or orc. No exceptions." Yarga's lips curved into a rare, approving smile. "Agreed. We'll meet daily at the silos to review stocks." She turned to leave, but paused. "Thank you, Marcus, for more than the ravine." As she walked away, the conflicts erupted almost immediately. Word spread like wildfire. By nightfall, the village elder, a grizzled human named Thorn, confronted me at my door. "What in the hell's are you doing, boy? Handing pricing to you? That's orc trickery. They'll use you to undercut us." His face was red, veins bulging. I held my ground. "It's for fairness, Thorn. No one's getting undercut. Everyone eats." But the orcs weren't thrilled either. The next day at the grain silos, a cluster of wooden barns guarded by burly orc sentries, one of them, a hulking male named Grook, eyed me suspiciously. "Why's the boss trusting a pinkskin? You planning to hike prices for your kind?" I showed Yarga's amulet, the runes glowing faintly as proof. "I'm here to balance the scales, not tip them. Let's get to work." The interactions with Yarga deepened over those tense days. We'd meet at dawn by the silos, poring over ledgers under lantern light. She'd explain orc trade customs, bartering based on clan honor, not just profit, while I shared human farming woes like poor soil yields. One evening, as we walked back through the misty fields, she opened up. "I lost my family in the wars. Humans raided our camp, father, brothers gone. That's why I built the caravan, power through trade, not blades." Her vulnerability cracked my defenses. I told her about my own losses, a sister taken in an orc raid leaving me alone. "We both know pain," I said. "Maybe that's why this works." But the pushback grew. Humans grumbled in the tavern, orcs whispered at the silos. Inner doubts plagued me. Was I betraying my people? Or finally fixing what was broken? The strain built, and one night I overheard a group plotting to sabotage the silos, blaming the orcs to force them out. Yarga and I would have to face it together, our fragile alliance tested like never before. The harvest failed that year, worse than any in memory. The fields, usually golden with wheat by late autumn, stood barren and cracked, the soil starved by endless rains followed by a merciless drought. Whispers turned to shouts in Eldridge, "The orcs curse the land," or "they're hoarding grain to drive up prices." As the mediator Yarga had appointed, I bore the brunt of it. Every day at the silos I'd review the stocks, meager now, and set fair rations. But fairness felt like favoritism to those who'd grown used to human elders skimming the top. The amulet around my neck grew heavier, a symbol of the divide I was trying to bridge. One evening, as twilight painted the village in shadows, I overheard the plot at the Rusty Blade. I wasn't there for ale. I'd stopped by to fix a broken hinge on the door. Hidden in the back, I listened as Thorn, the elder, rallied a group of farmers. Those greenskins control everything now, thanks to Marcus and his orc whore. We burn the silos tonight. Blame it on raiders. Force them out, take back what's ours. My blood ran cold. Thorn's voice was venomous, twisted by years of grudges from the wars. I slipped out unnoticed, heart pounding, and headed straight for the silos on the eastern edge, where Yarga often oversaw the night watch. The paths were dark, lit only by sporadic torches, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and impending frost. I found her there, standing guard with a few orc sentries, her silhouette imposing against the barn doors. "Yarga!" I whispered urgently, pulling her aside. "Trouble's coming. Thorn and his lot, they're planning to torch this place, blame the orcs to drive you away." Her eyes narrowed, tusks glinting in the torchlight. "Let them try. My warriors are ready." She gripped her axe, a massive thing etched with clan runes, but I saw the weariness in her stance, the constant strain of holding power in a hostile land. "We can't let it come to blood," I insisted. "Talk to them first. Show the ledgers. Prove the fairness." But even as I spoke, shouts echoed from the village square. A mob approached, torches flickering like angry stars, led by Thorn wielding a pitchfork. There were maybe 20 of them, faces twisted in rage, fueled by hunger and old hatreds. "Burn the orcs out! Take back our grain!" they chanted. Yarga's sentries formed a line, weapons drawn, but she stepped forward, her voice booming like thunder. "Stand down, humans! The grain is shared fairly. Your own mediator set the terms." The mob halted, uneasy, but Thorn pushed through. "Mediator? Traitor more like. You've sold us to the greenskins, Marcus. Step aside or burn with them." I emerged from the shadows, standing beside Yarga. The amulet swung free from my shirt, glowing faintly. "Thorn, this is madness. The failure's from the weather, not the orcs. We've rationed equally. Every family gets their share." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some looked doubtful, but others gripped their tools tighter. Thorn laughed bitterly. "Equals? With them? They've raided our homes, killed our kin. And now you bed down with their leader?" He lunged forward, torch raised, aiming for the silo doors. Chaos erupted, shouts, clashes as orc sentries blocked the way. A farmer swung at Grook, the orc guard, drawing blood. Yarga moved like a storm, her axe sweeping in a wide arc to disarm rather than kill, but the mob pressed in. In the frenzy, Thorn turned on me, his pitchfork thrusting. "Traitor!" he snarled. Time slowed. I dodged, but he grazed my arm, hot pain blooming. Yarga roared, shoving me behind her, her body a shield. "Touch him again, and you'll answer to me!" She stood firm, axe raised, protecting me. Not out of debt, but something deeper. The sight ignited something in me. I couldn't let her fight alone. Pushing forward, I grabbed Thorn's arm, wrenching the pitchfork away. "Enough!" I bellowed, my voice cutting through the din. The mob faltered, surprised by my ferocity. "If you need someone to blame, punish me. I set the prices. I chose fairness. But don't turn kindness into crime. Yarga's no enemy. She's kept us fed when we could have starved. If you burn this, you're burning your own future, and if you drive her out, I'll go with her." Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of torches. Thorn's face twisted in shock. "You'd choose them over us?" Murmurs grew. Some nodded, others lowered their weapons. A woman in the crowd, a farmer I'd helped before, spoke up. "He's right. My kids ate because of those fair shares." Slowly the mob dispersed, Thorn slinking away with muttered curses. The orc stood down, Grook nodding at me with reluctant respect. As the last torch faded into the night, Yarga and I were left alone by the silos. Blood trickled from my arm, but she bandaged it swiftly, her touch gentle despite her strength. The air was cool, stars emerging overhead, the scent of smoke lingering like a warning. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice low. "Stand for me. Risk your own." "I did," I replied, meeting her eyes. "Because it's not just debt anymore. You've shown me strength isn't just in axes or gold, it's in trust." My heart raced, the words spilling out. In the weeks of working together, I'd seen beyond her command, the loneliness of leadership, the scars of loss mirroring my own. What started as a rescue had become connection, slow and real, forged in shared trials. Yarga paused, her amber eyes softening. I thought the world ran on power, the strong take, the weak yield. But you refused to be bought, even by safety. She reached for the amulet around my neck, unclasping it. This was for debt. Then, from her pouch, she produced a similar token, but etched with new runes, symbols of binding, of choice. She pressed it into my hand, her fingers lingering. Now, this is an oath. In Orc ways, it means partnership. If I must leave this place, will you come? Dare to walk my path? The weight of it hit me. The offer wasn't just alliance, it was deeper, a vow across divides. My pulse thundered. If I could choose again, I'd still pull you from that ravine. And now, yes, I'll go with you. Our hands clasped, her grip strong yet warm, sealing something profound. In that moment, amid the ruins of near disaster, our bond transformed, from honor to love, tested and true. The night wind whispered approval, but I knew challenges lingered. For now, though, we'd face the storm together, and emerged stronger. A year had passed since that chaotic night at the silos, and Eldridge felt like a different world, or at least my corner of it did. The village hadn't transformed overnight. Old grudges didn't vanish like morning mist. But the fair grain distributions we'd enforced had eased the tensions, one shared meal at a time. Families who once spat at Orc merchants now nodded in passing, and the market square buzzed with mixed voices, human barters blending with Orc grunts of agreement. The story of the smith who couldn't be bought had spread beyond our borders, carried by travelers and traders. It painted me as some reluctant hero, refusing gold and standing against the mob. I didn't feel heroic, I just felt like a man who'd chosen principle over ease, and somehow it had rippled outward. I'd left my old cabin behind, moving to a new spot on the forest's edge, a sturdy forge I'd built with my own hands, larger than before with room for expansion. The location was symbolic. Not quite in the village, not fully in Orc territory, but a bridge between. Smoke rose from the chimney most days, the clang of my hammer echoing through the trees like a heartbeat. Business picked up too. Farmers from both sides brought tools for repair, trusting my work because they'd seen my fairness in action. No more scraping by. The forge thrived on honest labor, not favors or bribes. Yarga had become more than a partner in trade. She was woven into my life like iron into steel. We'd started with the grain deals, meeting daily to balance the books, but those sessions evolved into shared evenings by the fire, talking about everything from clan rituals to the scars we both carried from the wars. She taught me Orc phrases, simple ones like Kargath for honor or Vorash for unbreakable bond. And I showed her how to temper metal, her strong hands adapting quickly to the delicate work. Our differences, once barriers, became strengths. Her commanding presence deterred troublemakers while my quiet persistence smoothed negotiations. We lived together now, in the expanded cabin attached to the forge. It wasn't lavish. Wooden beams, a shared hearth, shelves of tools and herbs. But it was ours, built on choice rather than blood or custom. The Orcs and humans in Eldridge began to mirror that shift. Mixed patrols guarded the silos, children from both sides played in the fields without the old warnings, and even Thorn, the elder, grudgingly admitted the system worked. Didn't think a smith and an Orc could fix what kings broke, he'd muttered once, handing over a broken scythe for repair. The legend of that stormy night and the standoff had grown, inspiring tentative alliances. A human farmer married an Orc guard last spring, their union blessed by both elders. It wasn't perfect. Skirmishes still flared, whispers of traitor lingered, but trust was taking root, nourished by the equity we'd fought for. One crisp evening, as autumn leaves carpeted the ground outside our forge, Yarga called me inside. The air smelled of pine smoke and cooling metal. I'd just finished forging a set of horseshoes. She stood by the anvil, holding something small in her palm, a ring of iron, etched with intricate Orc runes that swirled like vines. She'd forged it herself, her first solo piece under my guidance. Marcus, she said, her voice steady but laced with emotion I'd rarely heard. In my clan, we don't bind with words or gold. We forge oaths in metal, tempered by fire and will. She took my hand, Slipping the ring onto my finger, it fit perfectly, warm from her touch. This is my choice. You as my life mate, before my kin, before the world. I looked at the ring, its surface gleaming in the firelight, symbolizing not just union, but the trials we'd endured. My heart swelled. This wasn't a hasty vow, but one forged slowly through storms, literal and figurative. Yarga, I replied, pulling her close, her frame towering yet fitting against mine like puzzle pieces. I've chosen you too. Not for power or debt, but because you've shown me a strength I never knew, yours and mine together. We stood there, her tusks brushing my shoulder, the forge's glow casting long shadows. Her clan had already accepted me, witnessing the ring's creation in a quiet ceremony weeks prior, their grunts of approval echoing my own quiet resolve. As we sat by the fire that night, sharing a simple meal of stew and bread, I reflected on how it all began, with a storm that nearly destroyed but instead created. Some storms seem like they'll shatter everything, I said softly, echoing thoughts that had haunted me. But others, they build families. Yarga nodded, her amber eyes reflecting the flames. And we've built ours, human and orc, different but chosen. We gazed into the embers, knowing the road ahead held challenges, more seasons of scarcity, lingering prejudices, the weight of our roles, but we'd face them side by side, our bond unbreakable, a testament that family wasn't born of similarity, but of deliberate, enduring choice. In that quiet moment, with her hand in mine, I knew we'd chosen right.